Hi, this is Teddy. Today's episode is about South Dakota. Here's some facts about South Dakota. The capital of South Dakota is Pierre, and the largest city is Sioux Falls. South Dakota is ranked 46th in population with around 900,000 people. The governor of South Dakota is Republican Dennis Daugaard. The senators are Republicans John Thune and Mike Round. South Dakota sends one representative to the U.S. House of Representatives, a Republican. Bye, y'all.
Hey everyone, this is Kelly with Two Broads Talking Politics. I'm here with my co-host Sophie. Hey Sophie.
Hey Kelly.
And today we are talking about the politics of South Dakota, which I'm super excited about. And joining us for an overview conversation is Sam Parkinson, who is the executive director of the South Dakota Democratic Party. Hi Sam.
Hey Kelly, hey Sophie, and hey everybody listening. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so first of all, I'm super excited that South Dakota has a Democratic Party.
So I think a lot of South Dakotans are too.
So, but before we get into that, maybe you could tell us just a little bit about your background and how you came to be working for the Democratic Party.
Yeah, so I've been with the South Dakota Democratic Party for a little over 3 years now, since I left college. And I kind of got roped into it after working as an intern in the state legislature and then taking part in one of our Young Dems programs called YELL, which is Young Elected Legislative Leaders. And it helps assign kids to state legislative campaigns and any other political work in the state. And from there, I graduated college and the chair said, hey, we have a spot open for you if you're interested and want to come work for us. So I came on as the finance director a few years ago and then became the executive director in April of 2017.
Have you always been a Democrat? I mean, it sounds like you were from college at least, but did you grow up in a Democratic family? What did that look like for you?
Yeah, so I don't think I really found myself politically until I did that internship in Pierre in the state legislature, and they kind of made you make a choice of which caucus you wanted to work for. I grew up in a very political family. I was born and raised, for the most part, in Northern Virginia, while both my parents worked in D.C. and were involved in politics as congressional staffers and lobbyists. And we moved out to South Dakota, but neither of them is a registered Democrat. My dad's a lifelong Republican, and my mom is an independent, but probably the most liberal member of our family. And I had to make a decision when I was, in 2014, and I realized that in South Dakota, the Democrats, I sided much more with them than the values of the Republican Party.
And so what does the Democratic Party look like in South Dakota? On paper, at least, this is an extremely Republican state, not perhaps the very most Republican, but, close. But that's on paper, and that might not reflect completely what's going on. So, what's sort of the makeup of the Democratic Party? Are there a lot of Democrats in South Dakota? What does that look like?
When it comes down to voter registration, numbers are, I think, a lot closer than what people would interpret. We are a red state. Republicans have been in control for a long time, but they don't even make up 50% of the voter registration in the state. Democrats are about 10% less than that, and then independents have a pretty strong foothold, around 32%. But then when you look at where we are with elected folks, at least in partisan positions, they control a supermajority of the state legislature. Gerrymandering has definitely been a benefit to them for that. But we're looking to make some changes in that, and we're seeing it at the local levels first, nonpartisan races, where kind of the values and the issues that we've been pushing have really been resonating with voters, and we are winning a lot of mayor's elections at the lower levels and having control on city councils as well.
And South Dakota has sort of a nice history of Democratic politics. I mean, I know that George McGovern was from South Dakota and Tom Daschle was from South Dakota. And so I know you guys have like a history of having strong Democrats.
Yeah, I mean, we have and a pretty recent history as well. For a long time, we've always had at least one Democrat representing us in Washington. We've only got 3 seats to make that an opportunity of, but we've always had one leading back at least until 2014 when Tim Johnson retired. But we had Tom Daschle, who was the majority leader in the Senate. Stephanie Herseth Sandlin was, a multiple-term congresswoman. And at one point, we had all 3 in the mid-2000s as Democrats in D.C. for South Dakota. It just quite hasn't resonated at the state level.
So I noticed that the South Dakota Democratic Party has actually quite a big Facebook page, which is promising, and seems to be fairly positive and not very trolled up yet.
Where I think, part of that, I think, leads to who South Dakotans tend to be, but I think our communications director, Erin, is doing a great job with it.
And so as you're communicating with people around the state, Democrats and maybe people who are, independent but trying to decide this year, what are some of the issues that people are really concerned with? What are the kinds of things they're going to be basing their decisions on this year?
Yeah, so in South Dakota, we really try to focus on, we talk a lot about South Dakota values, which are, honesty and integrity. But beyond that, when we have to talk about issues, we like to focus on education, healthcare. I think that what's something is kind of rare to South Dakota is corruption and transparency. And South Dakota state government for a long time has now been struggling with being transparent to its voters. And we've had a couple of corruption scandals over the last few years where we've seen, multiple millions of dollars disappear. And just trying to explain that to voters so they have a better grasp on what's happening. But beyond that, we're looking to expand Medicaid in the state. That's a big conversation. It would give health care to over 50,000 people in the state of South Dakota, and 50,000 people in South Dakota is a lot of people. We don't even have 1 million folks in the state. So that would make a big difference. And then beyond that, we're really pushing education. A few years ago, we were able to increase the teacher pay in the state. It took us from dead last to now like 4th to last in the country, but that's big for us. And then beyond that, we're also looking to stress a pre-K education program in the state. We're one of only a couple states in the country that doesn't offer any assistance for pre-K education. And I think we all know that the better education opportunities you have and the earlier you start learning, the better you're going to be off in the future.
And speaking of transparency in government, I know that South Dakota has a lot of issues on the ballot coming in November, and a lot of them seem to have to do with democracy and elections. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about those.
Yeah, so one of the bigger ones is Amendment W, which will kind of curtail campaign finance spending a little bit and what lobbyists are able to do. It's great that South Dakota is very open. You have a great opportunity to reach out to your legislators, but sometimes you might have a little too much, and lobbyists really tend to kind of take advantage of legislators in that sense, and sometimes the people as well. We had a measure that passed back in 2016 called IM-22 that really restricted what lobbyists could do and what you could spend regarding campaign finance. And the state legislature, that was the first thing they did when they got back in session in 2017, was overturn IM-22. And it really pissed off the voters. And they came back with another measure to bring it back. And I think we're going to see it pass in November.
Excellent. And so let's talk about some of the candidates on the ballot too. Especially, I think Billy Sutton, who's running for governor, seems to be really interesting. And there was a recent poll that actually showed him ahead, which is really amazing. And so the Billy Sutton, and was he in the state house prior to this?
He's been in the state legislature for the last 8 years in the state Senate.
Okay. And he's running against Kristi Noem, who is the current U.S. Congress rep in South Dakota. So can you talk a little bit about that race and about Billy specifically? Yeah.
So, I don't think you could ask for a better candidate than Billy Sutton. He's got phenomenal experience serving the last 8 years in the state Senate, being the Senate minority leader for the last 4. He truly understands South Dakota. He's got a truly unique story that I don't think most candidates have. About a little over 10 years ago, he was a professional rodeo rider, saddle bronc, one of the top in the country. and he was riding in a rodeo in Minot, South Dakota, and the horse he was riding bucked on him in the chute, and it pinned him against the backboard where there was some missing padding, and it instantly paralyzed him from the waist down. And that truly changed his life. I don't think he had any interest necessarily in politics whatsoever or representing people in the state legislature or on a bigger scale. And after a few months, he went back to school, got his financial advising degree, and has been working at a small town community bank, helping advise ranchers and families and small business owners. And a few years after that, when he was 26, he turned that into a state legislative kind of career and representing folks in his district, which is an extremely red district, but they seem to understand him and they see eye to eye. And after 8 years, he's decided that it's his time to step up once more again and run for governor. He's young, but he is extremely experienced and a very bright guy.
That's excellent. There seems to be a lot of excitement around him.
Yeah, I think you definitely don't see this kind of excitement for Democrats in South Dakota. We haven't had a governor that's a Democrat in over 40 years. But he is truly generating a lot of buzz. I think Democrats will always say, well, this Republican said they're going to vote for me, and that makes them feel really good. But Billy is truly generating that buzz in Republican circles through the establishment and just all over the state with people of any different view.
Are there any other races that are really interesting and exciting to you in 2018?
Yeah, so at the top of the ticket, besides that, we have our lone congressional seat up for grabs, which is Tim Bjorkman is running for that. It's an open seat. He's a retired circuit judge in the state who brings a different perspective than I think we've seen in a long time in that race. And then besides that, I know you guys are speaking with our Secretary of State candidate, Alexandra Frederick. Mm-hmm. She is a Native American woman who is running for statewide office, which is not often seen in this state. We're really excited to have her. And then I'd say another one is our Attorney General race, where we have Randy Seiler running. He's the former U.S. attorney for the state and even got a year in under Trump before stepping down. And just his qualifications are amazing for the position. And it's one that we also haven't elected in a long time in the state, a Democrat to that office.
All right. And you guys are already starting early voting.
Yeah, we started early vote back on September 21st. The state's got 6 weeks of early voting, so it means we really have to be prepared. We've kind of been in GOTV mode for a number of weeks already.
Excellent. Is there anything else that you wanted to make sure we talk about?
I think one of our biggest focuses over the past year and a little bit more beyond that has been working with our state legislative candidates and getting them prepared. We have 103 state legislative candidates running out of a possible 105. We reelect all of our legislators every 2 years. No party has ever put up this many candidates for the state legislature. So I'm very excited for that. We have 10 more at least than the Republicans do. And we've been working with them since the deadline in March to get them all prepared to be out on the ground. They're all out knocking doors, talking about who they are. And we're looking to get rid of this supermajority we have in Pierce so we can be productive when we elect a Democratic governor.
Excellent. That is super exciting to hear. Mm-hmm. And South Dakota is just a beautiful place. It's one of probably my favorite places I've ever visited. So I'd be even more excited to head back there if it turns more blue.
Yes.
All right. Well, Sam, thank you so much for coming on and talking to us. I think this has been, hopefully our listeners really like hopeful conversations, and this is a very hopeful one, I think. So it's really exciting to think about, especially, whatever happens in November. I think just getting people to run in that many races speaks really, really highly about the future of the Democratic Party in South Dakota.
Yeah, most definitely. And I really appreciate you having me on.
Welcome back to Two Broads Talking Politics. As usual, I am one of your hosts, Sophie, and I'm here with your other co-host, Kelly. Hey, Kelly.
Hey, everybody.
And joining us tonight for our South Dakota episode is Alexandra Frederick.